Hi everyone, my name is Matt Geldersma and I'm here to talk to you today about paintball. I chose this topic because I've been playing paintball for about 6 years and I've been president of Tech's paintball team for the last 2 years, and I really enjoy it and I'd just like to tell you a little bit about it. With this presentation I will take you through the basics of what paintball is. I'll talk a little bit about the history, how paintball started and how it's evolved. I'll give you some statistics as far as safety, industry, and number of people playing. I'll talk about the equipment used to play paintball, and then also about a couple different types of paintball, specifically woods ball and speedball. And then I will give a conclusion and wrap everything up with questions. Alright, the basics. Paintball is basically a combination of tag and capture the flag. At its very basic, you have two opposing teams, and the object of the game is to capture the opposing team's flag or objective. So just like capture the flag, the only real difference is the tag aspect, which is while you're doing this, you're able to tag your opponents by hitting them with paintball. Some history. Paintballs were actually invented by Michigan Tech graduate Dr. Charles Delson. He graduated in 1928. He's a chemical engineer. He invented paintballs in the 1950s for use in forestry and agriculture. They used them to mark specific trees to be cut down or to mark cattle to be separated from the herd. The concept for paintball as a game was born in 1976 when two friends read the book, The Most Dangerous Game. I don't know if you guys had to read that in school, but basically they wanted to figure out how to hunt and stalk each other in the woods, like in the game, or I'm sorry, in the book, but they couldn't actually figure out how to do this without hurting each other for a number of years. It happened in 1980 that one of them stumbled upon an agriculture catalog that had these paintball markers and paintballs in it, and they ordered some and thought this would be the perfect thing. So they played the first game of paintball on June 27, 1981. The game was originally called Survival. It didn't take off right away. They played it kind of by themselves for the first couple of months. Eventually Sports Illustrated published it in the magazine, and that was when it really started to take off and spread. It took a couple months, but starting towards the end of 1981 and into 1983 is when the first paintball manufacturers started actually making equipment specifically for the sport of paintball and not so much for the forestry and the agriculture anymore. Some statistics, a little less than 10 million people play paintball in the U.S. annually. It's the third largest extreme sport behind inline skating and mountain biking. It's played in over 104 countries, and there are big tournament circuits in the U.S., Mexico, Canada, Europe, Asia. Pretty much anywhere you go, there's some form of paintball being played. It's a $260 million a year industry. I think that's actually kind of an older figure. It should be quite a bit more now, and it grows every year as paintball spreads. It actually is statistically safer than bowling or golf. I know that's kind of a hard statistic to swallow, but what I looked at was the number of injuries per participant, and the paintball statistic is quite a bit less than 1%, and bowling and golf is just a little bit higher than that. Alright, equipment used to play the game. When you think about paintball, probably the first thing that comes to mind that you need to play is an actual paintball. What these are is they have a gelatinous shell on the outside. It's a little bit thicker. And then inside you have vegetable oil-based paint, and then when the paintball's fired, it hits the person, the shell breaks apart and releases the paint inside to effectively tag the person out. The next and absolutely most important part of paintball, your equipment, is the mask. Any sort of paintball injury that can occur will happen in your eyes and face, and this guy protects that. They come in different shapes and sizes, but basically they all have this lens right here. They're tested up to, I believe, 600 feet per second, and the most a paintball's ever going to come at you is 300. And the next thing you're going to need is your paintball marker. What this is you have to have an air source to power the marker. This air source right here is an HPA tank. It's the same thing as a scuba tank. It takes the same fill. Something else you can use is some of the lower priced markers use CO2. It's the same sort of tank, but it's just CO2 instead of the compressed air. And the air goes through the macro line into the regulator to power the actual marker itself. The way this marker works is you've got the lower tube and the upper tube. And the upper tube is this bolt, and it's connected by the pin into a rammer here. And as the air comes up into the gun, it pushes the rammer forward along with the bolt until it strikes a valve in the lower tube that releases a high blast of air into the upper tube and through that little hole in the bottom of the bolt, and it projects the paintball forward and out the barrel. What you need to actually feed paintballs into the gun is a hopper. And what they are is they basically just hold paint and feed it into the gun. Some of the lower budget hoppers are just gravity feed that lets gravity, allow the balls to fall into the gun and fire. This one's actually an agitate hopper. It's got blades on the inside that spin and actually force the paintballs into the marker so it can fire at a lot faster rate. Those are the basics. That's what you need just to play. As far as money invested, your marker setup can go anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s. Some of the not so basic stuff that you can see in the picture is a lot of protection for the player. You've got specific paintball plants. They have a lot more padding in the knees and the sides for sliding and diving, so protect your joints a little bit. We use elbow pads, knee pads, gloves, head protection, just kind of to help you out. All right, the different types of paintball. The first one I want to talk about is woods ball. This is where it all started. This is the most basic. It's running around in the woods on camo, kind of playing war. They're typically characterized by larger fields. Some of them can even be several acres, and there's a lot of different terrains, fields, woods, swamps, and also different bunkers to play with, like trees, berms, pallets, pretty much anything you can think of you can use in a woods ball field. There's a ton of different games that you can play that are involved in the woods, but most of them go towards this kind of a war theme, like you go to play army or simulate combat, I guess. The big thing in woods ball is scenario games, and this is like you take several hundred guys and they'll recreate like old World War II battles. The Army uses it for training. Basically, if you want to play war and run around in the woods, then this is the type of paintball for you. The other type, the type that I play, is called speedball. This is usually a lot smaller playing field than woods ball. A typical expo field, like what you see there, is 160 by 180 feet. These games are usually a lot faster. They're usually under 5 minutes for a single game. They're played, instead of in the woods, it's played behind inflatable bunkers. Each one of those are just inflatable bunkers that you can play behind. And as far as tournament paintball, there's a lot of different types, but they're all characterized by each team is, one team starts at this end, the other team starts at the other, and somewhere in the middle there's a flag that has to be taken and hung on the opposing team's side in order to win the match. In conclusion, paintball is a fast and exciting sport. I think there's something for everyone, whether you like to run around in the woods and play war, or you like the faster, more adrenaline-filled speedball. There's something that you'll enjoy. I really enjoyed playing it. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I encourage you all to go play paintball. Any questions?
Yeah, when you say extreme sports, what exactly constitutes extreme?
Well, I don't know what exactly constitutes extremes, but in the list that's like skateboarding, snowboarding, skydiving, like anything that's not a normal sport, like football or basketball or stuff like that.
And you called it a marker?
It's a marker. They're basically, it's a paintball gun, but it's just a more politically correct term, I guess, to kind of get away from the everybody run around with guns.
Does that come from the history you mentioned? Like
it's kind of from the same thing. They used to mark trees, and now you mark people with them.
Gotcha.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you.